The goal of this tutorial is to create a Java program that will return either even or odd depending on what number the user inputs. So our goals are going to be to get user input, store user input, and return either even or odd number depending on if the number the user put in was even or odd. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new BlueJ class and call it even or odd. Name doesn't matter. Open it up. Delete the sample code it gives you. Now let's start from scratch. The first thing we got to do is to declare a class, public class even or odd. Make sure that's all in brackets. There we go. Okay, the next thing we got to do is to create our main method, which is the method we're going to click on that will run the program. It's going to be what everything is running through. So it's public static void main open close parentheses string 2 box brackets args. And again, this program is what runs everything. So the first thing we're concerned with is getting user input. The second thing we're concerned with is storing user input. And the third thing we're concerned with is returning even or odd number based on the user input. Okay, so step one is actually getting user input. So to get user input in Java, you have to import a external class from an external package that will allow you to type in the terminal that pops up. In order to do that, we go to the top, outside of the class declaration, and we're going to say import java.util.star. And what essentially this does is it imports every single class, which is what the star does, in the java.util package. And inside the java.util package is a particular class we want to use called the scanner class, which it brings up a little cursor like you kind of see on the CodeHS website when you enter user input, where the person typing can enter in a value or whatever. So the first thing we got to do is call the class scanner s equals new scanner. What this does is it links our class, our even or odd class, to the scanner class in a way. So it allows us to use some of its methods, which we'll use later on when we are trying to get numbers from the user. Inside the parentheses, we have to put system.in. Now in Java, when you want to print out a line, you would say system.out.println. You say out because it's output, it's what's coming out of the machine. In this case, you want to do system.in because you're getting input. So our next step is to get our user input. We want to store it, and we want to have a prompt on the screen that asks the user, like, hey, enter a number, whatever. So in order to do that, we would do system.out.println, and this could be really whatever you want, but we want to say something like enter a number, something like that, to where the user knows what are we entering in here. So we got to prompt it. The second thing we got to do is actually have our next int method called from the scanner class. In order to do that, we might say int a, or whatever you want to call it, is equal to s.next int with a capital I. What this does is, as soon as we hit compile and everything and we launch the program, the first thing that's going to pop up on the terminal is enter a number. And then it's going to ask us, it'll put the little cursor on the screen that says, that gives us the option to enter a number. And what it will do is it will take our number we enter, which is this value right here, and we'll store it in the integer a. For an example, if we were to run it kind of early, we would do void main, which is the method we're going to call. Click enter. We see enter a number, and we have that little cursor blinking, and we can enter, let's say, 12, for example. And that's all it does, because that's how far we've gotten. So now, what we need to do is we got to take a, which is the value, again, of the number that the user puts in. And we have to check if it is even or if it's odd. The way to do that is by using an operation called modulus. If you don't know, modulus returns the remainder between two numbers. For example, if we say if a, which is the integer that holds the value of our user input number, modulus 2 equals 0, that says if the number the user inputs is even, do this. What's happening here is it will take the number the user inputs and it will divide it by 2. And if the remainder is 0, we're going to run the code inside the if statement. Well, what do we want it to do inside the if statement? From this true or false statement right here, we can conclude that the number has to be even. So we would say system.out.println number is even, or something like that, whatever you want to output. So now that we've checked if the number is even, we could add on to our if statement and make an else segment. So how this reads is if our number is even, because if 2 divided by that number has no remainder, it will be an even number. If it's even, we're going to print out number is even. If that is not true, in other words, if the number is odd, sorry about that, we're going to print out number is odd. So if the number is even, we print out number is even. If the number is not even, or else, we'll print out number is odd. Let's go ahead and run that, see what we get. Run our main method, enter, and our number, let's enter 12 again. Number is even. Let's enter an odd number this time, and let's go like 7. Number is odd. Perfect. Going back to our code, the last thing we have to do is prompt the user a total of 3 times to enter a number, and each of those times we ask him, we prompt him, we're going to return is the number even or odd. So a couple ways we can do this is either copy and paste this code over and over and over again and then change the values of the variables so we don't have reoccurring names on our variables. We can just take this entire portion of code. And I'm going to cut it so we can paste it in later. And I'm going to make a for loop that will run a total of 3 times to avoid rewriting our code. So to make a for loop, we'll say int x is equal to 0 as long as x is less than 3 x plus plus. And we're going to take our code and we're going to paste it in there and make sure our indenting is all good. So what's going on here? In a for loop, here is where we initialize our iterator variable. In this case, it's x. And what happens is it takes the value of x right here, and it checks, is x less than 3? In this case, it is, because x currently has the value of 0, so it's going to run the code. Then it goes right here, and x will increment by 1. So now x has the value of 1. It checks right here, is 1 less than 3? Yes, it's going to run the code a second time. Then it increments by 1. So now x has the value of 2. It checks right here, is 2 less than 3? Yes, so it runs the code a third time. And then it will go back here, it'll increment by 1. X now has the value of 3. Is 3 less than 3? No, it's not. So the loop will stop right there, giving us a total of 3 times the loop running through, which is perfectly what we wanted because we want it to output 3 times. So if we run it for the third time, let's say we have the number 12, numbers even, and look, we have the second little prompt window coming up. Let's do the number 7 again, numbers odd, and let's do something big like 1021, numbers odd.